making a monster. I sometimes wonder if the first time I saw him was on that sun-bleached sidewalk, back when we were both maybe 5 or 6 years old. I don't recall the exact moment, but I can picture a day, a summer afternoon, that shimmer of heat in the air, me riding my little bike and him standing listless in his yard. Even then, there was something off about him, like he was a step behind everyone else, craning his neck as though always in a daze, never knowing quite where to put his gaze. His name was Jay. He lived a few doors down in the house that took in a swarm of foster kids from time to time. His parents had 3 children, of their own, as people like to say, and then they'd bring in more. Battered or neglected foster kids, short-term or permanent, but Jay was their middle child, not one of the fosters, and for reasons no one seemed able to explain. He was the one always looking disheveled, torn clothes or a shirt stained at the collar, never the right size, worn for too many days in a row, hair a matted mess, a stale smell clinging to him like old sweat and unwashed laundry. His older sister and younger sister, by contrast, walked around in crisp, clean outfits, with brushed hair and normal levels of kid confidence. They'd wave hi or chat with me if they saw me, so I knew them. Meanwhile, Jay looked like he'd been left behind, physically and emotionally. At times I'd see him rummaging around the garage or wandering by himself, as if he wanted to melt into the background. Yet if he tried to join other kids for a game, they'd recoil or tease him, or the teacher would scold him for something random, ignoring more blatant trouble from the normal kids. It was as if everyone collectively agreed he was the outlier, the weird one. He smelled bad. So many students used it as license to mock him. The teachers, instead of intervening, often just singled him out further. One especially vivid memory is from 3rd grade. The teacher made him stand in the garbage can for something so minor, a mispronounced answer, maybe some random infraction. I can't recall precisely. The image stuck, though. Jay, humiliated, a filthy garbage can around his legs, while the rest of us kids squirmed uncomfortably or giggledy. A few kids, the bullies, delighted in IT. But me, I just felt nauseous, like a co-conspirator in cruelty. I said nothing, though. I was 8 or 9, struggling with my own desire to remain accepted by classmates. I looked away, wishing it would end. He was in tears, or maybe near tears, yet also wearing that vacant expression that suggested he'd given up on being rescued. As the years rolled on, Jay kept drifting to the fringes of everything. Academically behind, socially isolated, physically unkempt. In middle school, rumors circulated that he'd started smoking or messing with drugs. By high school, the rumor mill said he was definitely using heavy substances. Maybe dealing. He'd skip entire weeks, show up half-high, get in fights. Meanwhile, both his sisters seemed successful. Straight A's, honors programs, nice clothes, stable boyfriends. The discrepancy only grew more glaring. People in the neighborhood whispered that Jay was the troubled one, that something was wrong at home, but as far as anyone could see from the outside, the parents were fine, at least on paper. They fed the kids, they had a tidy house, they kept fostering. It never seemed to occur to any authorities that maybe, behind closed doors, Jay was neglected or abused in ways that singled him out, or that his well-being was overshadowed by the fosters or overshadowed by his sister's achievements. All I know is that one day Jay vanished from school entirely. Rumor had it he dropped out. Another rumor said his parents kicked him out. People saw him loitering near convenience stores, looking more strung out each time. I graduated, left for college, returned sporadically to see my family, rarely gave Jay a second thought, except to wonder if he was still alive. Then one day, many years later, there he was on the local news, not as a victim of some unfortunate accident, but as a suspect in a series of shocking crimes, serial killings. The newscaster used phrases like multiple women and method fits a pattern. I felt my stomach churn at the name, the same name as the little boy who used to sit behind me in 3rd grade, the one who was forced to stand in a trash can while we all watched. I physically shivered with horror. Then came the final blow. He'd eventually been caught, tried, convicted. The details of the crimes weren't fully spelled out in the news clip I saw, but enough was said that it was clearly monstrous. I watched the snippet, numb, trying to link that adult murderer to the child I remembered. I found out from neighbors that he'd ended up fathering a child, meaning he had a son or daughter out there who would likely never see him free again. The violence was unthinkable. At first I told myself, well, that's him. He made his choices as an adult. But after that initial wave of revulsion, A creeping guilt set in. I started remembering how I'd witnessed teachers humiliate him, how I'd seen kids bully him, how I sometimes joined the crowd in teasing, or at least in ignoring him. I realized, bit by bit, that I'd watched him flounder in a system that never gave him a chance. He was singled out, neglected by his parents in ways I suspect were emotionally or physically abusive. He might have had an untreated TBI from early childhood, giving him that perpetually befuddled look. The more I connected the dots, the more I realized he was never given the support he needed to develop normally. Neither academically nor psychologically, no. And I, in my passivity, contributed to that environment. I wasn't one of the direct bullies, but I certainly wasn't a friend. I rarely even gave him the time of day. On those occasions when I felt sorry for him, I'd just look away, too uncomfortable to intervene. The result: no adult or peer stepped up, so he spiraled down that path, eventually doing the unthinkable as an adult. Now, of course, I can't fully blame myself or my classmates. If he truly became a violent criminal, that's on him, right? But at the same time, I can't help but see how he was shaped by systemic and communal indifference. My indifference included all the times I watched him get mocked and said nothing. All the times I saw teachers overstep boundaries and do humiliating things and kept my mouth shut. I contributed. My inaction, my silence. Maybe if someone had advocated for him, gotten him real help, recognized the possibility of a TBI, or recognized that he was singled out for neglect while his sisters thrived, maybe his life path would have been different. Maybe not, but the possibility gnaws at me. Now I read the horrifying articles about the women he murdered, and it's an unspeakable tragedy. They're gone, their families shattered, all because Jew, who never had a real shot at normalcy, became a monster. And I think he was just a little boy once soon. It's easy to say, well, he's responsible now, which is true. No matter what your childhood is murder. But it still haunts me that I saw the seeds of his despair. I saw how no one was kind to him, how no teacher stood up for him, how not even the local child protective services intervened, despite all those fosters coming in and out of his home. If that's not a sign of something being wrong, I don't know what is. We, the community, the adults around him, should have been paying closer attention. So now I wrestle with a swirl of guilt, sadness, and horror. He's locked up forever, presumably, and I doubt I'll ever speak to him. But sometimes I imagine going to see him, to talk, to ask if he remembers me, if he resents me, or if he even cared that I was one of countless kids who let him suffer alone. Maybe that's masochistic. Maybe he'd just scowl or say it's all in the past. But for me, it's a lingering question. Could a scrap of kindness or attention from me have shifted anything for him? Or was his path sealed by deeper forces I had no control over? I try to channel that regret into how I treat people now. If I see a lonely kid, a bullied teen, or even a struggling adult, I try, at least a little more, to not look away. I'm not always successful, but the image of Jay, stinking of neglect and crying silently as a teacher forced him into a trash can, is seared into my mind. It's a reminder that ignoring suffering can lead to dire outcomes. It's not that every abused child becomes a killer, obviously, but the environment we create can push someone further or maybe pull them back from the edge. I can never fix what happened. I can't bring those women he killed back to life, nor can I right all the past injustices. Telling this story is just a small confession of guilt, my acknowledgement that I participated in a system that helped create a monster through inaction and complacency. I wish I'd been braver, more compassionate. Maybe it wouldn't have changed a thing, but at least I wouldn't feel this lingering sense of complicity. Now, all I can do is carry that lesson forward and strive to never again turn my face away from someone who's clearly crying out for help, even if they do it in destructive or disquieting ways. So that's it. He's a convicted serial killer, and I recall him as a broken little boy. He reeked of neglect, physically and emotionally. Everyone contributed. Teachers, neighbors, probably the fosters who came and went, the system, and me. I see the story on the news, the mugshot, the accusations, the final sentence, and I can't just say, oh, that's unrelated to me, because part of me was there when it all began, and I did nothing. That knowledge, ironically, is what pushes me to be kinder, more observant now. I'll never fully absolve myself for the inaction, but maybe I can at least honor the memory of that doomed little boy by preventing or helping someone else who might be on a similarly dark path. If the slightest kindness or intervention can avert even one tragedy, it might be worth it. That's the closest thing I have to closure.